I'm Ellie from NashvilleWife.com, and I'm here with Michael Davis. Michael Davis is a producer whose Civil War film Union Bound is set to release nationwide on April 22nd. In addition to Union Bound, Michael has produced or directed numerous faith-based films, including A Long Way Off, Destiny Road, Christmas on Highway 101. He is the founder of Uptone Pictures, Inc. Michael, it's great to have you with me today.
Thank you. I am excited to be here. Really am. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, my pleasure. To start, can you explain how you got interested in producing and directing films?
Well, I started at I think, a pretty young age. I grew up in Brazil, and my dad would not buy motorcycles or cars for us as we were growing up, but he would buy horses. And so we ended up having, at one point, about 6 or 7 horses, I think it was. And so I have 3 sisters, and we would put on these like horse shows and circus kind of deals. Mainly fell off the horses more than anything, but which is probably more dangerous than even a motorcycle. But doing that kind of stuff, I started really wanting to, I guess, entertain and going to college. Through high school doing drama, and then in college I really got immersed into broadcasting, television, and film, and then also literature. So it's always been kind of a passion.
And what's the best part about producing or directing a film?
I think for me, the process is, when someone comes to you with like in the case of Union Bound, a diary, and says, I want to turn this diary into a movie, and then so you watch this whole experience from this idea to a script to casting people, and then shooting a movie with actors, talking the parts that that are on the script, and then editing it all together, and then eventually seeing it on the screen. That whole experience is, I think, what makes me want to do it again and again and again.
I've heard some people say that that's actually better than being in the movie themselves, seeing it from far back.
Well, if you're in the movie, you get the taste of being there when they shoot it, but you're not there when they're editing. You're not there when you add the music. You're not necessarily there the very first time that you show it to an audience. So there are moments that are more, I think, like you said, more special because you get your fingers are kind of throughout the whole process.
What advice would you share with young, aspiring movie makers?
Well, get out there and do them. I think that if you want to get into this business, I tell a story. I've told this story a million times, I think. But there's a young girl. Her name was Taylor. She came to me out of college, and she wasn't sure what she wanted to do. And before she decided to go to college, she's like, I really want to try movies. And I had already hired everybody in my crew, and I said, look, I can pay you gas and like food, but I really can't hire you on a salary. And she said, I'll do it. And so for that movie, Destiny Road, actually, she worked on that, and she was the first one to arrive every day, last one to leave. And she just got rolled up her sleeves and said, I'll do anything. I'll sweep floors, I'll carry stuff, whatever I got to do. And she so impressed the crew that there was already another film that these guys were going to be on. They invited her on a paid position to be on that, and she has, I don't even know how many films she's made since. And now she's, it's her career. She's, in high demand and does a lot of big films, I think she's in Atlanta now working. And so I think for young, aspiring, if you want to be behind the camera, that's the best way. If you want to be an actor, just act in as many projects, whether they're film or TV or stage, just, work the craft. And I think just getting out there and doing it, it's kind of like riding a bike. The more you do it, the better you get.
And you mentioned that your kids, even though they're young, are getting into the movie industry.
Yeah. My daughter Isabella, she is, loves to tell stories, and she's like my mini me. She's always, she's written a book, and she's, you give her a pencil and a paper, and you come back, and she's got this whole thing, and it's just really fostering the creativity. She loves to sew. She loves to draw and do things that aren't necessarily movie related, but anything that has that creative vibe to it, she's all in.
So it sounds like your movie making legacy is going to continue.
I hope. Not pushing it, let her do it if she wants to.
Yeah. So let's talk about Union Bound.
Yay.
It's based on the diary of a real-life soldier and unlikely survivor of the Underground Railroad.
Right.
And it tells his journey, a very inspiring journey, that he took going back to the Union.
Correct. Well, Joseph Hoover was a soldier in the Union Army. He was captured at the Battle of the Wilderness in Virginia and was taken prisoner. And after he was in one camp called Andersonville, which was very, very horrible. I think throughout the war, about 12 to 15,000 men died there just of starvation, not even other diseases, and it was horrible. But he was actually fortunate that he got transferred to another prison that was being built called the Florence Stockade, and after being there 4 days, he escaped. And him and a friend ended up hiding in the marshes of South Carolina, ended up on a plantation, and the slaves helped them and basically put them through the Underground Railroad. And they ended up walking from Florence, South Carolina to New Bern, North Carolina. It took them about 5 or 6 weeks, and we kind of tell that journey. And what makes this story amazing is there are not very many written accounts about the Underground Railroad, number one, but what makes it unique is that they were Union soldiers being helped by Southern slaves. And that is something that there are not very... This may be one of the only documents that his diaries that talk about this, that actually Union soldiers were being helped to get back to the Union, not just free or escaped slaves. And so the movie is that whole journey, but it's also kind of a spiritual journey of him being from the upstate New York in the 1860s. He would have had very little contact with people of color. And so the fact that he had to basically put his life in the hands of a slave who saved him, Jim Young, who he writes about, he goes through a very big transformation, both physically because they were walking through the woods and everything, but spiritually as well. So that's what we tell in the story of Union Bound, and it comes right out of the pages of his diary.
I bet it does. Now, how did you find this diary?
Well, I had made a movie, which we alluded to a little bit earlier, called Destiny Road, and during that production in North Carolina, the family, after we got done, I received a call from Pam J., and she is the direct descendant of Joseph Hoover. They live in North Carolina, and she said, me and my husband would like to have coffee with you. Can you meet us? And she started telling me this story, and at first I was like, man, I don't know, You get a lot of people coming to you, I got a script or I got an idea, and half the time they're not really that interesting or that good. And so, but something inside me said, just meet with them. What's the worst that can happen? You make some new friends and have coffee. And so I went and met with him, and so she pulls out this Tupperware and starts pulling out stuff. And she opens up this little, in a cloth, these two very small books. And she goes, this is his diary from 1863, and this is his diary from 1864. And we want to tell this story. And then she starts pulling out his medals, and then this and that, and pictures that they still have of him. And I'm just going, whoa, this is pretty awesome. And then they had a 3-ring binder that had all his war records. They had traced. It took them. They did about 10 to 12 years of research, going through the Library of Congress, going through the different, even Ancestry.com and some of these different places to collect all this data about him. And what makes it really interesting is all the history books and a lot of the Civil War type documents, when they show the 121 of New York, Joseph Hoover is always listed as a member of that. So it all corroborates each other. And so when I started seeing that, I said, okay, first they wanted to do a documentary, and I said, I think we need to make this a feature film. And it took us a couple years to raise all the money to do it, but eventually we did, and here we are.
Now it's coming out in April 22nd.
April 22nd.
And what's your vision for this film?
My vision for the film really is, I think, twofold. First, so April 22nd, the movie comes out. May 2nd, the book comes out, the novel. And then later on in May, around the 10th or so, we're taking the movie and and it's kind of an experience on a 15-city tour. So people can actually see the movie, but also hear music from the movie. And one of the actors, Tank Jones, who plays Jim Young, the main slave, he's going to kind of MC it. So my vision for this is, one, to help educate people, because there's a big misconception about the Civil War today in pop culture, that people think that the Civil War is simply about slavery, and that's not really what it was all about. So hopefully we can bring a new, on a purely educational level, this is what was going on in the Civil War. The fact that slaves were helping Union soldiers is never talked about, and so we hope to bring that to light and maybe shine a little bit more of some other perspectives than what is the dogma out there. And I'm hoping that the key, it's two men that had to, basically, it was three men, two white guys, two white men and a black slave together, working together to get to the Union line. And so they bonded, they created this friendship, and they had a purpose. And I think in today's society, with all of this anger towards whether it's cops or shooting black people or whatever, there's this huge discourse and a huge divide. And hopefully this will help bridge that and show, it's time for people of different races to work together and, love each other and go to the same church, and do things together. And I don't know that maybe that's a dream. I don't know, but I hope that the movie can help bridge some of those gaps, or at least start the conversation and help people in that. And the film does have a number of faith elements in it. The film in itself isn't necessarily, it's not like God's Not Dead or, Courageous or Fireproof or something like that, which is maybe a lot more faith-driven. But there are definitely faith elements in the film. There's one of the soldiers has a conversion experience. I mean, you can't get any more, faith-driven than that. But it's really a story of these men in the woods, trying to get to freedom, being chased by the whole time, and having to deal with all this and living, working together. And I hope that together, as people watch this, they'll come away with at least a discussion.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how the public responds to this great movie. What is next for you after this?
Well, we've got a couple of films. We're actually announcing a film here at the NRB. The title it's a working title. It's called Trapped in Hitler's Hell, which is also kind of an escape story of a Jewish girl from a concentration camp during World War II. And it's based on a book by the same name. We're at the kind of the pre-production level on that. We've got some other films. I've got another film that we're getting ready to film that is not really it's just a movie. It's not really it's a kind of a murder mystery kind of thing, but it's not really a faith story. But the next kind of big faith one is this Trapped in Hitler's Hell, which is really a beautiful story about how she escapes and she ends up in America and has a conversion experience, and how her faith really she was able to help a lot of people. So,
well, my readers are definitely going to be wanting to follow you. What's the best way to do that, to keep up to date?
Well, on Union Bound, the best way is to go to unionboundthemovie.com. Unionboundthemovie.com. You can see all the theater listings. You can watch trailers. You can read some of the news articles. There's a whole bunch of stuff on there. There's going to be tour information. You can buy the book. There's just a whole bunch of, like I tell people, for all the 411 on Union Bound, go to unionboundthemovie.com. You can also go to uptonepictures.com, which is our website, and see some of the things that we're doing there too. Or follow us on Twitter and Facebook.
Okay. Well, it's been great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Be sure to visit all those websites that Michael Davis mentioned, and visit my website at NashvilleWife.com.